What's going on, everybody? It's Blake, your better realtor, and today I'm with a very special guest. I have Nathan Udomsri with Stearns Home Loans, and today we're going to be covering the 5 most common mistakes that we experience in today's market when buying a home. So thanks for being here, Nathan. We'll do a pound, COVID friendly.
There we go.
What do you think one of the first common mistakes is when buying a home?
Yeah, I would think probably the first common mistake is just not thinking that, or just thinking that you need like a 740 plus FICO score or a credit score, right? So the credit score is a big factor of buying a house, but in reality, there's a lot of ways that you can actually get into a house with a lower credit score. So like, I guess the rule of thumb I like to think about is as long as you have something over like 680 to, above that, that's usually a great spot because there's a lot of different loan programs like a conventional loan, FHA, obviously a VA loan, that allow you to actually get into a house with not the 800 credit score that you see a lot of people strive for, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So
Right.
you're saying one of the biggest mistakes, or one of the bigger mistakes, is thinking that you need a very high credit score.
Very, very high, right? Correct.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, with FHA being the first time home buyers kind of loan, right? What is the technical minimum for a credit score?
Right, so great question. So it does depend on your down payment. You can go as low as 580 with an FHA.
Okay.
Obviously with a VA loan, you have a lot of flexibility there. Now it's a different story of whether or not you should buy a house at 580. That's a completely different story. But I think there are ways, working with our preferred credit vendors to put you on a plan if you are at that 580 or 600, 620 mark, to get over to the 680 mark.
Gotcha.
That way it, improves your home buying scenarios and stuff like that.
So I guess what you're saying is kind of like it's possible at 580, but if it's really in the buyer's best interest to purchase at 580 instead of going on like something like you're saying, which is like a credit repair kind of scenario to get them up to the higher credit score in order to get, was it the better interest rate? Is that kind of
better interest rate and just better overall? Like if you're trying to buy a house and then also buy a car down the road, that obviously helps you not only in buying a house but also in other aspects as well, like installment loans and stuff like that, like a car.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So for people who have lower credit scores, no worries. There is hope. And if you guys are not in a position yet, there's always credit repair, different kind of strategies that we use to help you guys get in a position to go ahead and purchase that home. And speaking about first-time home buyer loans and just VA, conventional, all that good stuff, I think another thing that I've noticed personally when speaking with buyers is that they need 20% down or more when buying a home, right? Can you shed a little light on that? Like what is your experience on the loan side of things? Like what is normally what somebody puts down?
Yeah, so needing 20% down is kind of a common misconception. I think if you had 20% down, you can kind of argue with the fact that if you invest the other portion in sort of a better return market and actually use that as sort of dividends to pay you out, it actually could be better, but that's getting a little advanced. But you have down payment options as little as, if you're VA, 0%. If you're in a rural area, you also have 0% available. But honestly speaking, just out of all the families that I've sort of helped, I would kind of say like the average that I've seen is around the 10% mark.
10%?
I guess what are your experiences with someone having, buying a house with 20%?
Well, not everybody obviously has 20% down, right? So I would say typically people are anywhere between the 5% to about 10%, kind of where you're at. Now there are different options, right? I know you can go down to 3.5, right?
For an FHA, correct.
For an FHA loan. So for the FHA loan, you can go as low as 3.5%. For conventional, I believe that's, what is it? 5?
You can do 3%. You can do 5% as well. Honestly speaking, the most common is usually 5%.
Gotcha.
But technically speaking, you can go as little as 3% down.
Okay. So in reality, if you're looking to buy a home, and if it's your first home, you do not need 20% down. You can go as low as 3.5% down for an FHA loan, Obviously, every situation is different, so if you want to go through specifics and figure out which scenario works best for you in your situation, obviously hit up Nathan and he can talk with you a little bit more in detail about that. So rolling into the next one, this is going to be a big one that I've seen, and that is looking at homes before you have the pre-approval. So before you speak with Nathan, you're out shopping at homes or you're looking at homes, and I find that to be a very big mistake. And the reason that I feel that way is because let's say you're going out looking at homes, right? And you go out and you find the one, right? You found it, it's perfect. Now, by the time that you go now from seeing that home to speaking with Nathan, going through the pre-approval process, getting the docs in, all that good stuff, what do you think's happening with that home? Right? Because
probably multiple offers.
I mean,
all that fun stuff.
Just think about it. I mean, if you love the home, what are the chances that somebody else loves that home too? Right? So I think that's a big no-no when it comes to buying a home. What are your thoughts of that?
Yeah, I mean that's a very big mistake that I've seen quite often, and it is sometimes unfortunate to be in that situation where you get that call on the weekend, hey Nathan, we need a pre-approval right here and there, right? And obviously it can be done, but one of the nice things is just the analogy I like to use is just taking a test, right? Rewinding back in the day we used to be in school or things like that, is whenever you have tests you always prepare for it. Like ideally you wouldn't do an all-nighter the day before, but you usually do it, prepare in advance and stuff like that. And if there's anything you need to do to improve, like credit, things like that, you can always have that time to improve, because that's always just beneficial, just having that time. And then you can always dial in like really what's your budget, right? Because I feel like if you put an offer in and you don't even know what the monthly payment is or what your closing costs are and stuff like that, that could be just doing the families that we help a disservice, to be honest.
Right. So you're actually shooting yourself in the foot in a way, right? So. Without being prepared, right?
Yeah.
And
well, actually, this does remind me of another thing that kind of parlays into looking at a home before pre-approval is, one of the common things is right now, especially right now with the pandemic, there's a lot of deferments going on with student loans, right? Okay. So a lot of people think it's like, hey, my student loans are zero. So then let's say someone's student loan balance on a regular payment scale is like $600-700, right? Meaning their balance is really big, like $150,000, right? Because it's zero right now, a lot of lenders will have to defer it to a 1% rule, which is 1% of your loan balance. So $150,000 means we have to count that as $1,500 of $1,500 of debt.
Wow.
So I've seen that very common when someone's talking to another lender, and I look at the loan and it's like, oh yeah, that's going to be a problem. So that's something, especially right now, and this may apply to a lot of you listening, is you might have student loans that are in deferment, whereas your payment right now is zero and you're saving a lot of money from a cash flow perspective, but from a guideline perspective, it's not that friendly, I guess, if you call it that.
Right. So obviously, I think this all just ties into do your homework, do yourself the favor. Before you start looking at homes, before you're going out there and falling in love with property, talk to a lender, talk to Nathan, have a sit down. He can do the TCA, right?
Total cost analysis.
Total cost analysis. He can break it down and give you the clearest image, and give you a budget kind of, like a spreadsheet kind of thing that breaks it down nice and simple. And if you're not where you need to be yet, it'll at least give you a clear baseline and a structure and a guide towards the right direction to get yourself in that position to actually place an offer. And this is going to lead me to the next one.
So I think waiting for the real estate crash.
I think that's going to be number 4. I think number 4 is everybody's waiting for the crash, right? What is the crash, man, and what is your experience about people waiting for the crash?
Yeah, I think it is a very common question, especially right now, right, with the pandemic and all that good stuff. That is a very common question. One of the things that I always want to kind of figure out is what are we trying to do, which is, sounds like some people are waiting for the crash, and then we want to figure out why. The reason most most of the time is we're waiting for the crash is for a better deal. But I think, I guess that speaks onto your experience level, right? Are there ways that you have found to get around, the hot market right now, finding a better deal? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, when somebody says they're waiting for the crash, it just means that they're looking to get a good deal, or they're looking to get a good return on their investment. And with that being said, there's never a bad time to buy the right home, right? If the numbers make sense, it doesn't matter if it's a year from now, 6 months from now, or today or tomorrow, right? As long as it's a good deal. So just depending on what a good deal is to that person, right, we can actually go ahead and make that happen. Now, if their concern is more so like closing costs and getting that discount, right? There's different ways that I go about it. Obviously, the inspection, leveraging the inspection can go ahead and get you some additional seller credits. I think the highest I've gotten was like $17,000, $18,000. So if you're a VA person, let's say,
I'm assuming that helps a lot.
if you're a VA person, you have to bring very little to the table. That would cover your closing costs and some, right? And you get a check from escrow at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So that'll definitely give you a good deal. But I think when you're saying waiting for the crash, it's just a matter of finding out what that deal is to that person, right? And just kind of guiding them and seeing if it's even possible to do it now. So I think waiting for the crash is essentially kind of I want to say it's just,
it may have like validity to it
Yeah.
or some truth to it, but at the same time, I guess you're saying like you can still find a great deal? Is that?
Yeah,
Is that
I mean,
fair to say?
it's you can get a good deal anytime.
Yeah.
I think that it's the fear of missing out of opportunity. I think somebody that wants to buy and wait, and they have the luxury of waiting. They're thinking the grass is greener on the other side. But let's say the market doesn't crash, right? Because I think we're expecting an 8.1% appreciation this year?
Pretty high.
Right? So what if it doesn't crash is my question. Do you still want to wait? Knowing that the home that you want today may increase next year, right? So that's obviously a conversation we can have more in detail once, we sit down and we go over the pre-approval process, all that good stuff, and we can talk more about the nitty-gritty. And obviously there's micro markets, different neighborhoods have different.
That is a good point.
It really just depends on you. So that's another mistake we see, is waiting for the crash without actually speaking with an expert and going more so based off speculation versus the facts, right? So I think speaking with a realtor and a professional and speaking with a lender, it gives you the facts, and that's really what's going to do you the best justice moving forward. And that's going to bring me into my number 5, right? So number 5 is when people are not thinking long term when it comes to purchasing real estate, right? So this kind of ties into waiting for the market to crash, right? So it's been proven over time that homes appreciate, right, over a long period of time. You're not going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1 year, have you seen that?
Unless it's a flip.
Unless it's a flip.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the video, let's say a first time home buyer, right? If this is a primary residence, unless you're doing a flip or you're doing some crazy amount of upgrades,
right.
There's the chances of you getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year is just not going to happen.
Right.
So I think not thinking long term when purchasing a home really can hurt somebody, because they're so focused on the right now and just the tunnel vision, and they're not looking at the bigger picture, right? So I don't know, Nathan, what has your experience been? Because I know you're an investor as well, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I guess that's a really solid point, and it is kind of tough sometimes to focus on the long term, which is kind of looking at the big picture, let's say 10-year mark, right? Generally speaking, and from real estate, like if you talk to a real estate investor or just anyone who's in real estate, over a 10-year span, they usually kind of win out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so
right.
they hold tight, right?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, like if you buy a house today and you try to sell it without doing anything a month later, like you're not going to make a profit that way,
No,
right?
You might break even.
You might break even,
Yeah.
but like at the end of the day, it is a long-term picture, and once you actually, just like a GPS, right? You always put like your destination, and then you reverse engineer kind of the optimal route to get there, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people kind of focus on just trying to make the first right turn, and they forget that if they would have went left, they would have gone the freeway much faster on the 5 without traffic, obviously, and gotten to their destination a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So I think that is a mistake that I do see a lot, not thinking long term and kind of getting lost in that area.
Yeah, and I think, at least for me, working with a lot of first-time home buyers, is they get wrapped up in this first home being their like forever home. This is their dream home, and which in some cases I don't want to say that it's not possible. In some cases that is true, and that will be their forever home. But 9 times out of 10, I mean, if you're looking at people with these extravagant homes, multi-million-dollar homes, do you guys think that was their first home that they purchased?
Probably not. Probably not.
Probably not, right? So it's the first-time home buyer. Look at it more so in the eyes of an investor, right? And think long-term. So it's like this is a stepping stone to get you guys to eventually where you want to end up, right? So if this isn't your forever home, and 9 times out of 10 on a first-time home buyer, it's typically not. You can use that to either sell it down the line and cash out with the equity, or pull some money out, right? And then use that money to go ahead and buy investment properties, whether that be in California or out of state, right? And start getting that cash flow, and use that money to then go ahead and purchase that dream home and use that cash flow to pay the mortgage. So that's the 5 steps, guys. I'm gonna switch it over to here. That is the 5 mistakes that we are experiencing the most. I don't know, Nathan, did you want to add anything else to it before I close it out?
No, those were all great tips. I think you mentioned the very last one, which is budgeting, right? Which is not buying too much, but that you can't afford, and so not stretching yourself too thin, I guess.
Right.
So thinking long term.
Yeah. I think the pro tip of the day is if you're looking to make any kind of move in real estate, better call Blake, and we'll go ahead and get you situated. We'll get a game plan going, and we'll make this process as smooth and seamless as possible. And if you guys have any questions, or if you feel like there's something that we missed or that we didn't cover, and you guys want us to go ahead and talk about it, we do plan on doing more videos on a weekly basis. So please comment down below, like and share, because that means the world to us. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.